After resting overnight, the father and son started to close up the cabin, dismantling the ladder to the attic and applying oil to the well stakes to prevent bears from climbing. They sealed the cabin doors and windows and sprinkled deodorizing disinfectant around, also to deter bears. A few hours later, their work was complete. Now, they had to cross the Tochi River for the second time. The original path was very dangerous, and although Stan wanted to find an alternative, the situation on the other side was even worse. They had no choice but to return to the dangerous crossing. Concerned for his son's safety, Stan chose to scout ahead. The conditions were worse than the day before, with the ice becoming thinner. Joey suggested he ride the motorcycle across the river first, allowing his father to follow, ensuring a more precise direction for the dog team. For the first time, son and father switched roles. Joey, usually the one protected, now took on the responsibility of safeguarding his father. The duo overcame the difficulties and successfully crossed the perilous Tochi River. Joey's recent actions filled Stan with pride, realizing he could no longer treat his son as a child. The trapping season ended smoothly, followed by another important hunting season. The annual Alaskan goose hunting season had arrived, and Stan planned to hunt Canadian wild geese with Joey at Fish Lake. To get a head start and claim the season's first wild goose, Joey had already packed his gear. Stan, driving the dog sled, slowed them down, and despite Joey's impatience, he had to endure it. Over the years, the dogs had often been a source of argument between them, but Stan insisted on their value as some experienced dogs could discern thinner ice, helping them avoid risks. After much preparation, they finally set off, already an hour behind others. Stan urged the dogs to speed up to catch up. Arriving late, the prime hunting spots were already taken by other hunters. They searched for half an hour, but couldn't find a suitable spot. In the end, they and Charlie and his son, who were also looking for a spot, eyed the same location. They decided to settle it with a frisbee toss. Joey, feeling it was a waste of time, refused to compete. As expected, they lost, and Stan, accompanied by Joey, continued to search for a new hunting spot. They found a clearing and built a very small makeshift blind out of branches. When the wild geese approached, the cramped space became a hindrance. The father and son kept interfering with each other, missing their shots. If this continued, their goose hunting season would be ruined. From morning till now, nothing had gone right, frustrating Joey. He made a bold decision. He asked his father to go home while he took on the responsibility of hunting geese to provide for the family. Without disturbances, his shooting might improve. Although Stan was worried about leaving his son alone, he chose to trust him. After all, his son had now stepped into the role of a man, bearing responsibilities and providing for the family, tasks he must undertake in the future. To prove he could handle the hunting responsibilities, Joey used local wisdom to build an even smaller hunting blind for better camouflage. Everything was ready. Now he just needed to wait patiently for the prey to come to him. But until dark, he saw not a single feather. The next day, Joey continued to strive to fulfill his promise. After a long wait, he finally saw the first flock of wild geese. Without disturbances, Joey thrived, achieving a very high hit rate. He quickly bagged 13 wild geese, enough to feed his family for a month. Knowing when to stop and not overharvest is a fundamental respect hunters show towards nature. Joey returned home with a full load. The 13 wild geese amazed and delighted Stan. He was surprised, happy, relieved, and proud. An old man can't always be by his child's side, but seeing his son capable of providing for and taking responsibility for the family truly made Stan happy. And Joey, through his own efforts, was able to ease his aging father's burden, which deeply satisfied him. This father-son hunter duo, despite their usual frictions, genuinely cared for each other in the face of adversity, even at the risk of their own lives. Such a relationship is truly enviable. April has arrived, and the frozen town of Tanana is finally thawing. In recent months, food shortages have become common. Some families have even had to ration their meals. As a result, the annual goose hunting season is critical. The Canadian wild goose is a staple for the locals. At this time each year, every hunter in town sets out to claim their share of the bounty. Charlie, a respected hunter, always arrives at the hunting grounds first. However, his lazy son Bob often holds him back. While other hunters have already left, Charlie is still at home waiting for his son. If it weren't too dangerous to hunt alone during the thaw, he would have left by himself. He is anxious because hunting spots are public. Whoever gets there first claims the spot. Missing out on the best locations means catching less game. Bob, however, isn't being lazy this time. He has been chopping wood at home, trying to make up for past mistakes and to cheer up his father. But when he arrives home, Charlie scolds him without care for the firewood because hunting geese is the priority. Understanding the urgency of tasks is crucial for survival in such harsh conditions. With resentment, Bob packs his gear and follows his father. After traveling 40 kilometers, they reach the Fish Lake hunting grounds. However, they arrive late and the best spots are already taken by other hunters. After a long search, they find an area unoccupied by other hunters, but Stan and his son have also spotted it. The area is only big enough for 2 people, so one group must leave. To avoid conflict, they decide to settle it using a local tradition, a frisbee shooting contest. Joey disagrees, seeing it as a waste of time. Left with no choice, Stan faces Charlie and his son alone. They decide that each person gets 5 shots. The one who hits the frisbee the most stays. Bob hits 3 out of 5, Stan hits 4 out of 5, but Charlie, known for his excellent shooting, hits all 5. Stan and his son, regrettably, have to leave and look for another spot. The victorious Charlie and his son stay, and after waiting for 2 hours, they finally see the first flock of wild geese. However, due to a small mistake by Bob, their first shot missed the wild goose. This made Charlie furious again. Bob felt terrible too. What was supposed to be an enjoyable hunting trip, with his father, had turned joyless. As a result, he started talking back to Charlie. In anger, Charlie sent him home, and before leaving, he told Bob not to forget to clean up their temporary campsite. Bob agreed, but ran home without fulfilling his promise. With no distractions, Charlie thrived and quickly bagged several wild geese. But when he went to collect his game, he noticed the ice on Fish Lake was melting severely due to high temperatures. Realizing the deadly risk, he hurried back to pack up, only to find that Bob had not kept his promise. A man's word was more important to him than his life, yet Bob had carelessly broken it. Packing up took a lot of time, and recent issues piled up, pushing Charlie to the brink of rage. He stormed home and told Bob to leave immediately. This was the breaking point between Charlie and his son. From that moment, Bob decided to leave Tanana forever. A potentially deadly flood had almost submerged Tanana, but a sudden rise in temperature resolved the crisis. Now, people could finally go down to the Yukon River to collect wood and use fish traps. Hunter Stan and his 21-year-old daughter Caitlin were preparing their gear to head to their fishing camp. She had just graduated from the University of Fairbanks and was worried about her aging father, so she came to help as much as she could. Although the flood had passed through Tanana smoothly, most of the fishing camps along the way, being in low-lying areas, were badly damaged by the rising waters. Stan was understandably worried about his plot of land, as his smokehouse had already collapsed twice before, even without floods. The nearby camps had all suffered heavy losses, making the outlook grim. However, when they reached their own site, they found everything intact, a fortunate turn amidst the misfortune. Still, some repairs were needed. Stan decided to go home to get some tools and to ask Joey for help. After the ice melt, many driftwoods appear on the river. The people of Tanana rely on these woods for heating during winter. The spring flood delayed many activities, causing the wood collection and fishing season to overlap. Therefore, Stan wanted to fish while having his son go to the Yukon River to collect some wood for him. Joey, now 23, was gradually taking on the family's responsibilities. Facing his father's request, he would never refuse, even if it meant going through fire and water. Stan returned to the fishing camp while Joey immediately headed to the Yukon River. The wood drifted from upstream, so Joey aimed to move upstream to beat others to it. Even the cunning wood merchant James wouldn't catch up with him this year. After traveling 32 kilometers, he encountered a large amount of driftwood. Just as he was feeling proud, the engine suddenly stopped and couldn't be restarted. He had filled up with fuel and done maintenance before leaving, not expecting this to happen. Now, he could only row to the shore and wait for rescue. However, the place he came from was rarely visited, and he didn't know how long it would take for help to arrive. Apart from a raincoat, he didn't bring any supplies or equipment. This was really a disaster. Things weren't going well for Stan either. While installing an automatic fish catcher, Caitlin accidentally fell into the water. Fortunately, she didn't hit her head, or it could have been a disaster. This year's catch couldn't compare to last year's at all. After much effort, father and daughter caught only a few white salmon. The yield was not proportional to the effort. Frustrated, Stan turned off the automatic fish catcher and returned to Joey, who had been trapped for 18 hours. Just as the sun was setting, a boat passing by spotted him waving his shirt and rescued him. Back home, he went to his father's fishing camp. Joey felt very guilty. Stan had trusted him, yet he didn't bring back a single piece of wood. When his father mentioned that he had turned off the water wheel, Joey felt a sudden surge of pressure. He had always thought about becoming better and more capable to take over his father's responsibilities, but he didn't expect that day to come so quickly. It's now May, and Alaska is unusually cold this spring. The Yukon River is still covered with a 15-centimeter thick layer of ice. In previous years, the river would have thawed by now, allowing people to go out fishing and hunting to sustain themselves. Now, with the boat unable to travel and the ice not usable as a road, everyone is trapped in Tanana. There is a severe shortage of food. Joey, the town's best young hunter, is not too affected because he had a successful goose hunting season and now can consume those wild geese. When he went to the outdoor refrigerator, he found the place in disarray. The food stored there had been wiped out. Judging by the paw prints left behind, it was a black bear. Joey was understandably nervous. If the bear decided to attack suddenly, his life could be at risk. This situation occurred because the cold weather affected the bear's ability to catch fish and eat tender grass, driving the trapped bear to take risks in human territories. Joey is most worried about his father, Stan, who is getting older and slower in reacting. He fears that Stan might be in danger if he encounters a black bear. Meanwhile, Stan is giving water to his sled dogs, which are essential for his travel in winter, so he tries to conserve their energy in spring and summer. Suddenly, he notices that a puppy named Ranger is missing from the doghouse. After investigating, he realizes the puppy didn't just wander off. Armed with a gun, Stan follows tracks into the forest and, as suspected, finds that his beloved dog has been killed. This loss deeply upsets Stan. To protect both his dogs and the townspeople, he resolves that the bear must be dealt with. Joey soon joins him, and together they decide the bear will likely return. They cover their fish storage with metal sheets, so any bear attempting to steal fish will make a loud noise. Additionally, they plan to warn the townspeople about the bear threat. While driving to spread the word, they encounter the bear. When they stop to deal with it, the bear flees into the forest. Chasing a bear into the woods is unwise, so they abandon the pursuit. The bear heads towards James' house, where many dogs and children are at risk. They immediately notify James, a cunning wood merchant, who is alarmed by the news. Despite being cautious, he has no better plan. That afternoon, while James is moving supplies, his dogs suddenly start barking furiously. The bear has appeared. With only one bullet left, James knows he must make it count or become the bear's prey. In a swift moment fueled by adrenaline, he shoots accurately, and the bear falls, no longer a threat. James not only protects his dogs and family, but also gains bear skin and meat, turning misfortune into fortune, a stroke of luck. Tanana is not only threatened by black bears now, but another deadly disaster is also approaching the town. Due to lower temperatures this year, the ice on the river that should have melted has not. Upstream ice chunks that should drift downstream are causing blockages in the river, leading to potentially fatal floods that could submerge villages along the way. This is not an exaggeration. In 2009, a similar incident occurred, causing $25 million in damages. This year, conditions are very similar to those of 2009. According to recent news, an 11-kilometer wide and 68-kilometer long jam has already formed upstream. Igor's area upstream has been flooded, and this disaster will reach Tanana in 2 to 3 days. In response, the authorities have convened a meeting to mobilize help for people in low-lying areas to relocate. The town has quickly sprung into action with various heavy machinery deployed. Tasks are clearly assigned and well organized, moving everything to higher ground, a massive undertaking. All available large machinery and vehicles in town are being utilized. It will take a concerted effort from everyone in the community to get through this crisis. Due to the need for substantial horsepower in the wilderness, vehicles in Tanana are very fuel-intensive. For instance, Charlie's pickup truck burns over 100 liters of gasoline a day. Because of its remote location, local gasoline is very expensive at $1.85 per liter, adding up to a significant expense. The flood has already passed through Surco town and is about to reach Tanana. With time running out, the town begins to panic. In the face of nature's might, humans seem truly insignificant. Once all belongings are moved and the rescue teams are exhausted, all that remains is to wait and pray for a miracle. However, according to the current situation, it seems inevitable that Tanana will be submerged. Yet, nothing is absolute. As the flood was about to hit, temperatures suddenly rose to 21 degrees Celsius, causing the ice to melt rapidly. The previous ice blocks smoothly drifted downstream, preventing any blockages and averting the flood. The deadly crisis was miraculously resolved. Now, as the ice drifts away, people can fish in the Yukon River or go hunting in the mountains. Life in the remote town of Tanana, Alaska is increasingly challenging. After enduring the long winter, it is finally the season to catch king salmon, a rare and vital food source which is the most reliable and important of the year. However, to protect the environment, local authorities have imposed a complete ban on fishing for this species this year. With the loss of their main traditional food, the people are at a loss. Town leader Charlie is busy searching for alternatives. He may settle for using chum salmon, originally meant for dogs, as his own staple food. The Yukon River has thawed, but some ice floes still float on its surface, making fishing extremely dangerous. Charlie's good friend, stepfather, and brother-in-law have all been claimed by this river, so he needs to be very careful. This risky trip involves setting a scouting fishing net in his fishing area, 6 kilometers away. Carefully navigating through the ice floes, Charlie reaches his territory. After setting the net, he must wait 24 hours before checking it. Catching chum salmon here could significantly ease the food crisis. If unsuccessful, he'll need to think of other solutions with everyone. Discussion about food is now most common, and while saving king salmon was the right decision, Those who rely on the Yukon River are left unattended. Living at the bottom of society, they cannot contest these decisions and must quickly find alternative resources, even if it means traveling further or hunting previously untargeted species to survive. Overnight, there are no conversations, and by the next day, the ice situation on the river has improved significantly. With his son Bob having moved to the city, Charlie feels very alone, especially when hunting without help. He asks his 18-year-old daughter, Tanisha, to assist him. This fishing trip is crucial for all of Tanana. With no ice to hinder them, they quickly reach the location of the net. Charlie steers the boat while Tanisha cuts the ropes of the net from the shore. The net is heavy, suggesting a good catch, but in reality, it only holds 3 small fish, weighed down by driftwood. With no good news, they return to Tanana empty-handed. Meanwhile, skilled young hunter Joey, also driven by the same purpose, is hunting reindeer alone in the Bard Mountains. At 24, his responsibilities are growing. Previously, he only had to ensure his own family's sustenance. But now, he aims to address the food issues of the entire town of Tanana. Since the complete hunting ban on king salmon was implemented locally, finding alternative food has become extremely urgent. Therefore, Joey was tasked by the community to search for reindeer in the Bard Mountains to help alleviate the food crisis. Naturally, he needed to hunt one first to feed his own family. When he reached the mountaintop after a strenuous climb, he found the situation bleak. Not only were there no signs of reindeer, but there was no wildlife in sight at all. In recent years, it seems the game around Tanana has become smarter, always evading hunters. Technologies like drones and thermal imaging are not allowed in hunting, so encountering game requires sheer luck. As an excellent hunter, Joey always stays alert, using his eyes and ears, and sometimes even his sense of smell, to catch any trace. After searching for hours in the wilderness, he finally spotted a male reindeer. It was an opportunity he could not miss. However, at the crucial moment, he made a mistake, and the reindeer fled hastily, not giving him a second chance. Joey was quite self-critical, knowing his family was waiting for the meat he failed to secure. Despite this setback, he did not give up. He spent the night on the mountain, planning to continue the search the next day. The lonely night felt especially long. Joey woke up at the first light of dawn the next morning, which was the time he had agreed with his father to descend the mountain. Additionally, he only brought enough food and water for 2 days. Thus, whether he succeeded in hunting or not, he had to descend today. Under immense pressure, this exploratory hunt was crucial for the whole of Tanana. No matter the difficulties, he had to speed up and strive to find the reindeer. His perseverance paid off when he finally spotted a second reindeer. Reindeer are very skittish and will bolt at the slightest abnormality. The traditional hunting methods taught to him by the town's older hunters now proved useful. He took off his jacket, unzipped his coat to reveal the white t-shirt underneath, making the distant reindeer mistake him for one of its own. Due to poor visibility, the reindeer approached from downwind to sniff him. If it caught the scent of a hunter, it would run away like the wind. Joey had only a few seconds to make his move, and with just 1 bullet left, this was his last chance. His critical shot hit the target. He immediately bled the deer to ensure the meat's freshness. It was a shame to waste the deer blood. The hunting was successful, but the work had just begun. He had to dispose of the reindeer's skin, organs, and skeleton, keeping only the less than 90 pounds of meat. Unfortunately, he did not find a herd, which was bad news for Tanana. Now, there are no chum salmon in the Yukon River, and the North American reindeer herd has not been found. It's uncertain what to do next. At this moment, James, who was visiting, told Stan and his son that a group of pure wild American bison had arrived near Tanana. These massive creatures, weighing up to a ton each, could sustain several families if just one was hunted. This could bring new hope to the townspeople. Just a few days ago, young hunter Joey hunted a North American reindeer, bringing nearly 90 pounds of wild deer meat to his family. However, the primary goal of this exploratory hunt was to find a large reindeer herd to address the food crisis after the ban on hunting king salmon. After failing to find the reindeer herd, they turned their focus to the American bison, a formidable prey that the people of Tanana had never hunted before. It was a fresh start in a long and risky process, but they had no other choice. To tackle this dangerous beast, the best young hunter Joey, trapping master Stan, cunning lumber merchant James, and Tanana's leading figure Charlie. These 4 top hunters would join forces to hunt the bison. Hunting as a team has its advantages, as they can support each other in case of emergencies. To find the bison herd, they must cross the Yukon River and embark on a tough trek to reach their destination. However, there's no guarantee of success. Failure could push their families to the limits of survival. They traveled 64 kilometers along the Yukon River, followed by a 32-kilometer hike through the mountains. Hunting with the town's top hunters added pressure on Joey. Although he is the best among the young hunters, he still has a gap compared to these experienced hunters and needs to prove that he can help everyone, rather than be a burden. After walking for 12 hours, they finally reach the location said to contain the bison herd. They have not yet seen the bison, but the first obstacle is already in front of them: a dense forest that is not conducive to hunting. Normally, they might consider turning back, but these are not normal times. With food so scarce, they will not give up and will continue to strive for a positive outcome. The 4 carefully made their way through the dense forest, but failed to spot their target or even find any traces. They had to stop and discuss their next steps. If they couldn't find the target ahead, Charlie might decide to give up. However, Joey didn't plan to return empty-handed. He decided to climb a steep ridge alone to look for prey from a higher vantage point. Stan was pleased with his son's performance and maturity. He was proud that his son was developing his own ideas and perspectives. Searching for prey in a dense forest is not easy, and Joey may need to spend a lot of time. In the past, he would have packed up and gone home if he couldn't find any prey. But now, with greater responsibilities, he has learned to be patient. After using a scope for over 2 hours, Joey finally spotted a bull feeding in the distance. He quickly descended and led the team to the location. However, it wasn't just one American bison, but a large herd. Despite being herbivores, they could use their horns to launch an attack. Bison are large and temperamental, and surprisingly fast, running up to 56 km/h. If they decided to attack, it could be deadly. Sensing human presence, the bison started to run. The hunters quickly selected their target. Charlie, as the main shooter, would fire first, with the others ready to follow up. With Charlie pulling the trigger, a male bison fell dead. Their efforts were not in vain. The massive animal would provide ample food for their families and bring new hope to Tanana. Upon returning to town, Patek brought shocking news. The fate of Tanana would change dramatically from that moment. Previously an isolated wilderness town accessible only by water and air, Fairbanks was now planning to build a road directly connecting it to the outside world. The once secluded town would undergo a transformation. Once the road opened, it might attract a flood of outsiders and other hunters, potentially leaving the surrounding areas devoid of wildlife. However, half of the town holds a different opinion. Building the road could reduce transportation costs, lower the price of gasoline and electricity, and increase job opportunities to earn money. Patek, in fact, supports the road construction. He is currently in dire need of money. His wife recently suffered a severe illness, depleting all their savings and leaving them deeply in debt. He urgently needs a substantial income to sustain his living. Fortunately, he was approached by officials to oversee the road construction. Without this job, He might have been forced to sell his dogs to his rival James, potentially ruining his family's dog breeding business. Patek visited these top hunters mainly to gauge their thoughts on the road construction. Unfortunately, the results were disappointing, but he did not reveal to them that he had already accepted this controversial job.